Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Friday. Bitcoin is getting the fifth wave that we were talking about yesterday and actually the day before. We wanted to see a five-wave move after this crash had initiated. Remember, we dropped in kind of like a skateboard dropping into one of those half pipes, right? And instead of going back up it, it kind of bottlenecks to the downside and then it drops. So as we were down here, we wanted to, you know, find a bottom, which we did. We wanted a higher low, which we did. Then we wanted another wave upside, which we got. Then we wanted a fourth wave, which we got. And now we're getting a fifth wave. So if we get five waves to the upside, back into the retracement levels, maybe it needs to go a little bit higher. Maybe it's done now. But the point is, you get five waves. What do you want now? We want to flag out, right? We want a big ABC correction. And this correction could actually come all the way back down, believe it or not, depending where this ends. I'll put it a little bit higher. I'll match it with this right here, this local high here. So let's say we get back up there, then we could still come all the way back down to 54, or actually not 54, 55K would be perfect for an ABC pullback. So let me stretch this out a little bit so you can see. I mean, come on, we got the fifth wave. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get 5, right? And then let's get an A, B, C. Something big like that, where we just, kind of flag out in here a little bit and then continue breaking to the upside. You could see a shoulder, you could see a head, you could see another shoulder, right? It's exactly what we were talking about back when we were down here. The idea of getting a five-wave move back to these local highs to then shape that head, right? So far it's looking pretty dang good in my opinion. We just have to, worry about if this is some sort of complex correction, and we'll jump into that in just a second. That's also, it could be a risk. But the big news today is Theta. Look at Theta; it's up 7% basically, right? While the rest of the market is like maybe 2%, 3%, 3.5%, 1.5%. Theta Fuel's up 6.25%. Right? On Binance, it's a clear 7% move. Ethereum's 3%. So I would say the majority of the market is between 1 and 3%. But when you look at Theta, we're sitting here at 7%. And that's exactly what we want. And then also Theta got what? Its fifth wave as well. So we have we have a 1, A, B, C, right? Or actually, wave 1, wave 2, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that would be our wave 3. We have an ABC expanded flat for wave 4, and then it appears to be a 1, 2, 3. Let's get 4 and maybe 5, and then we would get our wave 5 here. So I think it's looking quite nice, really. I mean, this is exactly what we want. Now, if this turns into a B wave, or actually an X wave, right, we have the risk of coming back down and creating a Y. So remember this count. We have 3 up. This could be 3 back down. And then we would get 3 or 5 back up later on. So it's all going to come down to how it's forming in here. Now, we have a little bit of an edge. Why? Because of the way it's coming up. It's coming up not so correctively. It's coming up more, I would say, impulsively, right? We got a 5-wave structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we can get up here a little bit higher and then maybe get some kind of ABC, that's the big thing. We will get rejected in here. You can mark my words. We will get rejected in here. Right? If this thing just breaks out and just goes and goes and goes with no resistance, I will be actually quite surprised. I would be pleasantly surprised, and I would be happy to be wrong. But my experience is, if you get 3 up and you come down you take out this liquidity, right? Chances are you're going to come back up, which we did, which I were saying we were. And then, you know, it's all about how it goes up and then how it reacts to the resistance levels, right? The retracement levels. So let me just put the retracement up here. Right? So you can see we are literally right at the 618 right now, which is a good thing, right? You can see that. And so far, so good, right? But if we can get a little bit higher, maybe up to the, you know, 702, that would be nice. That would be even better. But the thing is, right, it's about how it gets rejected. Do we come down fast and hard like this? Right? Or do we sort of oscillate down in an ABC correction like this? Right? Because if we get up here and we get rejected hard and then it comes flying down, then that's going to give me the impression that this is probably just an X wave, right? So something like this. But if we can get up here and sort of not really get smacked back down and sort of hang out up here a little bit and then slowly start to correct in a nice oscillating ABC fashion, a very clear three-wave look for, you know, this is a wave one and then we get a wave two, right? And wave two could be deep. We can come all the way back down to like $1.15, right? But the point is, if we get that three-wave shape, then I'm going to be looking for more upside, right? And I would look at this as a wave one, a wave two, right? And then maybe a wave 3, 4, and 5 later on. So that's what we got here for the price of Theta. It's looking really nice. So let's see what happens. Let's zoom in here. And let's look at the smaller time frames. Let me go to the other Theta chart here. We'll zoom back over to Bitcoin in a second. Yeah, it's definitely, you can see how the waves come up, resets, comes up, back test, come up, back test, come up. You can see it's continuing to reset itself. And that's very bullish. You can see it's consistently trying to do that here, right? This one didn't do it too much, and now this one here, you can see we're having a little bit of trouble hanging back above this high right here. So I would say probably the wave's over, at least for a little bit, right? At least for a little bit here. I mean, it's a pretty decent wave there. We got I would say that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we would have sort of an A, B, C. It's kind of a running flat for wave 2. And then all of this is wave 3. So we have a 1, a 2, a 3. Let's come down for a 4. And then let's go up for a 5. If we get something like that, right, and then we can get a bigger correction later on, then we can look for more upside, because that's the whole point of crypto, right? Is we all want crypto to go up because we all hold crypto, right? We all want it to go higher. So that doesn't mean it's always going to do that. We have to remain biased, or we have to remain neutral, not biased. So you know, that's part of the fun of trying to figure it all out, is what's the next move going to be. It's just like every single day it's like, okay, now what's happening, now what's happening, now what's happening, right? You can see we're coming up a little bit here on this trend line, and I actually quite like this a lot because it kind of gives me a little bit of a something to work with here as far as a shoulder. We got a head here, right? And now we're rolling back up to a shoulder. So if we can get up to this downward resistance line, maybe flag out a little bit, get some sort of resistance, break above it, back test it, maybe like a 1-2, 1-2, right? And then maybe we can continue our ascent back to the upside. So the measured move of that, approximately, I know it's not perfect, but approximately it would be about 212 to 215. Sorry, wait a minute. Actually, I would actually say conservatively under these lows here. So under these area here would be our first stop. That'd be about a 190. And that's exactly, yeah, that's exactly where I think it should be. So once we get there, then we can come back. Let me put this line here, and then maybe consolidate while holding these lows here at $1, say $1.60, $1.50, right? Because remember, $1.90, there's a gap here. You could see there's basically, as soon as we broke that, we fell straight through it. And then if you go back up, as soon as we went through, it's kind of like an air pocket, right? It's kind of like an open space. And when the price enters into that space, it just instantly goes up, just how it instantly went down. So what happens is, as you're working your way back up or down, depending on what it is, you have to, sort of create, let me just draw this here. You could see the two areas. So let's say we get back up here, we pull back, right? We make it to $1.90. Then what you want to do is pull all the way back and retest this area. That way you have, a volume profile. You have trading history in this little pocket here, right? So it breaks it, resists it, comes back down, holds it as support, and now this is kind of like, it's kind of like if you're building a wall and you're putting cement in between the bricks or the, whatever. And basically this is like a gap in between. This is your first brick, right? This is one brick, this is another brick. And all the price is doing is getting up here, and then it's filling in that gap with cement. That way when it continues higher, we have support, we have structure in here, right? We don't want this to be a weak spot. So that's going to be a very critical area between $1.60 and $1, say 95, right? So we'll see how it progresses. Another thing I'm looking for is, yes, here's your sort of a downward resistance line here, and I think I had it right there. Looks really good. And then we also have another, which is our main downward resistance line, which is right here. And let me tell you what, this thing's getting really close, guys. This thing's getting really close. I would actually remove that one and just keep this one, because that's the main boy right there. So somewhere in here, I want to see a breakout between now and the end of September, right? Because again, we could pull back in here. If this is a 3 and this is a 3, right, then we could still have another chance later on at breaking it. But if it's not, right, if this is rather an impulse instead of just a correction, and we can just sort of consolidate and build up some support in here, right, and then break out, and this will be a 1, this will be a 2, and then we can really start with our momentum back to the upside, because that's my belief. I've been saying it for a long time, saying somewhere in here, this is the bottoming process, right? It could take time. We could swipe the low like we did here. We could come up, make a lower low. But the point is, I think we're building a base and we're going sideways. The velocity to the downside is slowing down. You can see right here, we didn't keep going, right? We came back. So anywhere in here is a good spot, in my opinion, for dollar cost averaging, not financial advice. I could be wrong. We could keep going down. But this is what I believe based on a lot of different things, right? So one of the things is the 9 on the TD sequential. Remember, I talked about this the day it happened. We had a 9 buy, and I said this is a really good perfected 9. Now, it took a little while for it to get activated, but who cares, right? I mean, it did its job. You can see we had a 9, a perfected 9 with a bullish doji, or bullish hammer candle. We came up, we entered the red dots, we broke above the red dots, we back tested the 9, and it basically activated it. Now we have an engulfing candle here. So we're on a 6. Today we're going to get a 7. So maybe we can make it to another 9, which will be a good thing, right? Let's make it to another 9 and then have a 1 to 4 candle correction with that 9 sell, and then hopefully continue higher. So that's one little reason. And you can see there's another 9 over here that did its job perfectly, right? This is not a reversal 9, but it was a pullback 9. So the big one is the 2-week chart. Now this is the big boy here. This is a very rare 9 buy because it's on the 2-week chart. The higher the time frame, the less likely you are to hit a 9. And if you do hit a 9, the more likely it is for that 9 to play out. Now, it's only happened 2 other times in Theta's history, both of which have led to explosive rallies. But the problem is, this one here wasn't perfected, so it took a little bit longer for it to get going. This 9 here is actually perfected, and let me show you the 9 before that on Theta. So this is the entire chart of Theta, and again, this is the entire price history of Theta right here. So we have 1 9 there, we have another 9 here, and we just had our third 9 here. That is rare, my friends. And so we had 3 9s with, let's see, when did it start trading? January. So let's say January of 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and we're about to hit 25. So basically like 6.5, 7 years. So we've had 3 9s, 3 9 buys on the 2-week chart in about 6 to 7 years. So, you know, that's pretty rare. Averaging out maybe 1 9 every 2 years. But here's the thing. This is the first 9 in Theta's history that's actually perfected. It's a perfected 9, meaning what that means is it's going down in a nice orderly fashion. The 2 below the 1, the 3 below the 2, the 4 below the 3, the 5 below the 4, the 6 below the, you know what I mean? So it's going down in a nice orderly fashion. And you can see the 8 actually was the true bottom, but that's okay. The 9 was still in the same order block as the 8, which is important. And you can see how we go red to green, to red to green. We're flipping back and forth. And usually when that happens, depending which way the trend is, in this case it's going down. So when you see that flipping back and forth, that tells me what? We are creating a bottom. Just like back over here, this is the first time I started doing videos right there. Back when Theta was 64 cents. That was the first Theta video. And you can see we were going sideways for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And then bam, we broke out. Now look at this. We're going sideways 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Here's another 4-week sideways, right? So it could last a little longer. It could be 5, it could be 6, it could be 7 weeks, right? This is such a big drop that it wouldn't surprise me that the base would be pretty big. But we don't want it to get too big. We want it to, you know, have some strength and some velocity back to the upside, because my main idea has always been, since we've been bottomed here, is to get back to the retracement levels, right? Remember what I say. Here's your point A, here's point B. Point A is pretty easy, point B is pretty easy, but once you get in the middle here, this is the middle, right? Then it becomes hard. It's triangular, right? So that's going to be the big deciding factor. So I believe we will get up higher, but then the question becomes, can we break out of that? Can we get above these retracements? And it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. Unless we can get a extreme momentum, a lot of altcoin mania momentum going on, it's going to take some time and it's going to take some work. But I think it's going to happen once we start going. I think it's going to happen pretty quickly, actually. You know, but I think as regards to is taking time, I think it's going to take some time in the retracement level. But once we break that, I think it's going to happen fast. So be ready. So not much else to say here on theta except this shape here. You see this shape? It's looking like a beautiful W pattern is forming here. And we can see that the same thing happened to Ethereum back in the day, right? Let me get rid of that. So you can see this beautiful W. So same thing with Ethereum. We're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We shot to the upside in 3 waves, and then we came down in 3 waves, right? And then that's when we exploded. So this whole thing was a nice W bottom. Boom, 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 right? So when we go back to theta, same similar situation happening here, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Or actually, you could say 5 is here. We have 3 up. Now this could be 3 down, or we can actually make a retracement and then come down later on and then go. You see what I mean? So there could be a much more, you know, complex correction here. For example, if we get up to the retracement levels and we get rejected and then we come back down, then this is a 3-wave move. So we had 3 up, we would get 3 back down, and then we would start our massive ascent to the upside, right? Which, you know, could happen here. We have a nice, and then that would create our beautiful W pattern. So same thing, similar happened to Ethereum. You can see how, let me show you. Same time frame. Look at this. Let me throw on the sequential here. See, we didn't make it to a 9. That's the problem. But look at the 9 cell. We had a perfect 9 cell here, and we had a perfect 9 cell here. Perfect. So you notice there's a 9 by here. That wasn't a good 9, right? Because you're in the middle of this 5-wave impulse to the downside. Now the 9 did kind of stall the price for a little bit, but it was just a pullback 9, just like how this was a pullback 9. Now how do you know if it's a pullback 9 or an actual reversal 9? Well, you have to use Elliott wave 2, and you have to kind of know where you are in the structure. So if you want this indicator, you gotta go to trend reversal predictor right here. So it's a little bit different than mine. You can't search for the one I have. I guess I was grandfathered in. I don't know. But anyway, what I was saying is, you notice how we're coming down, and then we pop the high. We go into, and look how fast it was. It was an impulse. It was looking really good. But instead of flagging out, what happened? We dropped hard, and it created that 3-wave shape. And then we started exploding to the upside. You see what I mean? So if we go back to theta and we say, okay, what if that same situation is happening? Because I have to be honest, theta and Ethereum look very similar based off that Ethereum's previous cycle. So if we come up here and we shoot really hard back to the upside, and then all of a sudden we drop hard, we take out that liquidity, and then we run up very, very, very fast. Right? I mean, I could totally see that happening. Now, is that my main idea? That will be my main idea if we get rejected here. Now, I'm going to try to figure out how it's going up as it's, making its ascent. So what we can do is let's go to the 4-hour chart. Let's take everything off the screen and let's go back in time to that area. So just bear with me here. It's gonna take a minute. Okay, actually, you know what? My trading plan, I think they got, for TradingView, you can get the free, or you can get the premium, or no, it's plus, premium, and pro. I think I just have the plus, or maybe I have the premium, I don't know, but it doesn't go as far back as I would like, but that's okay. So you can see how we started going up. We went up rather impulsively, but what happened was, when we got to the top, this is what we need to look for, right? So as theta makes its way to its retracement, going up into its retracement, do we get something like this at the end of it, which is kind of like, you're sort of playing around, you drop hard, you come up here, and then you drop again, right? But then you just free fall, right? So it started off looking like a three-way move, and then it basically didn't give you any time to get out, which is a little bit concerning, right? Because you could say this is a three-way move right there, and then when this came up and it got rejected, right, you could say, okay, well then it's going to come up in three like this and then come down. But then it came and broke that low. Well, now and this would have been your area to get out right here. So we'll see how that plays out when the time comes. So as far as Ethereum right now, I mean, it looks like a nice sort of three-wave shape, I would imagine. It had that shape of Bitcoin in its wave 2, but you can see it broke to the low. It came up, it got rejected, it came back down, but it still hasn't broke this low. So I'm wondering if we can come back and do something like that and then go. That's what I want to see for Ethereum, something like that. So, but anyways, let's take a look at, let me just take a look at theta one more time on the small time frames. Yeah, it looks like we're coming down now, or at least for a little correction here. So we'll see how it continues to progress. But as far as the macro on theta, by the way, let's take a look at some of the oscillators like the MACD and things like that. So the first indicator I'm looking at is the Lucid SAR on the weekly chart. Now, I don't like looking at the daily. It's either, maybe the 4-day or the weekly. Now look at this. We have officially broken above the Lucid SAR, and we've been below it this whole time. So the 4-day chart, I like it a lot because it's pretty significant. So you can see we came here, we broke it, and now we're back above it. So we flipped the star bullishly. So the higher the time frame, the more lagging of an indicator it becomes. But let's see. See the 5. You see, just one day changes it a lot. So what I would do is actually go to the weekly chart, and once we break that lucid SAR to the upside, it's going to be positive momentum. So let's take a look at the MACD, and then also Ichimoku cloud. Whoops, I guess I have too many indicators. They don't let you have one second here. So here's the Ichimoku cloud. You could see, it did flip green here. It's coming back to red, but it's a little bit spread out right now. But I actually quite think it's pretty bullish here. You can see how it got real tight. You can see how thick that cloud was back over here, right? You see that red cloud? We broke above it, and then what happened is now it flipped it green, but then we came back pretty quick, so now it's kind of flipping back red, but you can see it's a lot tighter now than it was. So Ichimoku cloud doing quite okay. Still needs some time here. So now let's look at the MACD. So the MACD on the weekly chart is still has downside momentum, right? But that's what you would expect. Obviously, we've been going down in this correction for the last 150 plus days. But you can see, you could see how this blue line is starting to level off. You could see the orange line starting to slow down. And look at the histograms. You can see they're red, and now they're getting lighter and lighter and lighter, like they're trying to flip green. So what we want to see for the MACD is, we're obviously building a base in here, right? It's taking some time. So if we have another candle down, then maybe we break back up. This will, over time, it'll start to cross over like this, right? It'll start to cross over like this and then continue higher. And then you can see this right in here will start to turn green, and then we'll flip back to the upside. So I think, it's bearish looking right now, but again, it's a lagging indicator. The trend is, you can see it's going down, which is what we want. The histograms are going down, and these are starting to level off. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now when I go to the monthly chart, you can start to see it's kind of slowing down a little bit, but we're still positive. We're still positive momentum. And you can see the lines, these lines here have not yet crossed above the 0 line. And they're still, you could see how they're starting to come together. They're starting to get squeezed together. But then once the price starts going back up, right, I think this is going to, maybe will come down a little bit like this, but then it'll start to curl back up. We might flip red for a little bit, but then it'll turn back to green. So, for example, let's look at the smaller time frames here. So the 4-hour MACD is pretty bullish, right? We came down on this correction, and now we're swooping back, and now it looks like we got some pretty strong momentum back to the upside. So we'll definitely keep an eye on all that. The bull market support band would be the next indicator, is getting back above that, right? So right now my target is the bull market support band. But if we have to come back down in this 3-way move, then I would target it later on. So it would actually not surprise me at all if we had to come back here, right? Because you can start to see the oscillation now, right? We're going kind of like Wyckoff, back and forth, building this basin here, right? Support, resistance, and then we do it so much that it becomes solidified and strong, and then we can break out. So just a few ideas for us today. XRP still looking okay. Let's go up to the weekly here. So the weekly MACD is looking pretty good. So far, so good. You can see we came down, we crossed below the zero, we flipped back up, and now we're hanging out above the zero, which is not too bad. You're not going to get a lot of with XRP because it hasn't been trending. It's been essentially consolidating this whole time. So same thing with the 2-week chart. Not really too interesting. It came up, it's kind of flagging out a little bit. So it's just going to take a big move, right? The monthly chart is still bullish, right? I mean, look at this monthly chart here. You can see we came back up, came down, came back up, came down, and now we're barely coming back up. So I would imagine we would come back up to here, right? It takes a little while to get going, but ultimately, it's pretty fast. So if I zoom in even closely back over here, you can see we don't really have much data going that. I was going to see how it reacted in here, but you can see it's not too much data there. But the interesting thing about XRP right now is how tight we are becoming as far as let's see if I could pull up the Bollinger Bands or the Ichimoku Cloud on the weekly chart. You can see it's kind of flipping back and forth, back and forth. We're still under that red cloud, but I think it's going to take some time. But let me put the you can see the Bollinger Bands getting pretty tight here. You can see they're starting to get squeezed in here a little bit. So that's a good thing. That's what we want. Once this becomes tight, then something's got to give, right? So just look at the 2-week chart. I mean, you can see when we go up, look how big the gap is here, right? But now look at it. Look how tight we are. This is the tightest XRP has ever been. I mean, look how tight it was back over here before we blasted off. It wasn't that bad, but now look at it. It's really, 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 really tight. I mean, this thing is super, super tight. And all of it's going down right on the bull market support band. I don't like the fact that how it came up green, flipped red, flipped green, flipped red, flipped green, because it's showing some resistance here. But this thing can, just because it's getting tight doesn't mean it's going to break to the upside. It could break to the downside. So we'll just have to wait and see. I think we have a better chance at breaking to the upside because of this 3-wave shape here. Boom, boom, boom. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, right? We have this impulse. Now we're flagging out in here on the smaller time frame. So it's looking pretty good. Let's bump it up to the monthly. So the monthly chart's not that tight because it's a lot bigger of a time frame. But you can see it got tight in here, it exploded, and it's still relatively pretty tight. It's still, it's converging as we speak. So it's looking good. Remember, we have all of um, 80 bars here, and this is 40 bars, so we've completely doubled the time. So, you know, and then we also checked off, right, all the key areas: the top, the bottom, the liquidity grab, the retracement, right? Come down into reaccumulation. We had box one, box two, another liquidity grab, box one, box two, liquidity. I mean, everything's lining up, guys, the way it's supposed to be. So it's looking good. So this is what I wanted to pull everybody's attention to, is this downward resistance line actually on the 3-month chart. Now you can say we broke above it, but I'm be more conservative. I want to get as many touch points as I can on all of these candles here, and you can see just how tight we are. So this thing should break out. Let's see, we have July, this is a 3-month chart, right? And then this will be October, and then January. So by January, basically by next Q1 of next year, we should be breaking out soon, right? So same thing here. We had our triangle, and it broke out at the very end. It waited until we got to the very end of the triangle. I mean, come on. If that chart doesn't tell you to be bullish, then I don't know what does, right? And you can kind of see the same thing like we talked about Ethereum. Look at the W shape. See how it's starting to have that W look to it? So this thing could be breaking out pretty soon here, and it could be life-changing if you know how to position yourself. So we'll find out. We'll find out together. But yeah, that thing looks nice. So we'll see how all of this plays out. But I think my opinion, my assessment here is that this is a 3-wave shape, right? So if we have to understand what happened here. We obviously had our bull run. We had our bear market, right? It got so oversold. It got squeezed in here, which then exploded back to the upside in a retracement, right? We got stalled out in here, and we came all the way back down into reaccumulation. Then we started holding a base. We started going sideways, right? And then we started started moving back up in this move here. Boom, 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 boom. And then that move needed a correction, which gave us this 3-way pullback. So now the obvious next move would be something like that. Up, down. What comes next? Up, right? We've been going down for the last year. We've been going down ever since the Judge Torres ruling back in last July. So it's been well over a year we've been correcting. It's actually been longer than that if you go back further. It's been 6+ years. So, when I zoom in to the daily, we have, you can see it a little bit better here. Boom, boom, boom. That's your 3-wave shape. And then now we have an impulse to the upside. We have a big pullback. We have another impulse. And then we have this 3-way pullback here. And now we're impulsing again. So if this thing can keep rolling here, that would be a good sign to see. Because if you look, also, you can say that this is 3. Right? And then we had another 3 in here. And then this 3 here. So this whole thing became W, X, Y. A running flat. And it caught the bottom of this trend line. And now we're sort of converging in here. So I think this thing should be giving us a move, right? To the upside or even to the downside. Now, if it is a downside move, what would be the count then? Well, instead of WXY, maybe it's WXY, and this is an X, and then we get Z, right? So essentially, impulse, backtest, impulse, flagging out, right? Before we explode to the upside. I actually like the WXYXZ. It actually looks proportional. It looks quite nice. See, I want you to notice every time we're back above the bull market support band, like for example over here, we come down, we come back up, we come down, and then we just roll over. We come down, we come back up, we come down, come back up, and then we roll over, right? So there's no definition. In this, we're just completely coming down, right? But if you notice here, it's acting completely different. Instead of doing that, we have 3 down, we came back up, and now we have a 3-wave shape here. Whereas there was no 3-wave shape anywhere in here, right? So if we had to come down again, like this, WXYXZ, then that's okay, right? You can see that's almost what happened over here, right? We had, or actually it did, yeah, WXYXZ, right? And another 3-wave shape here. So anytime XRP gets these impulse 3-wave pullback, and then it starts to consolidate on the bull market support band, I mean, that was a recipe for an explosive move. So let's look at the smaller time frames on XRP real quick. So this could be, it is moving up correctively, which is not that good. We don't want it to move up correctively. So it could be A. Whoops. We have an A. And then we come up in some kind of B wave, or even B wave there. And then now we're coming down in a C wave. So maybe some kind of, or an X wave, some kind of move down like this. So basically a 3-wave move like this, right? And then we go up later, right? So that's one way to look at it. The other way, and that's always the tricky part, is when you're in the middle of the retracement levels, right? I still want to see this come up a little bit higher in the retracement. But I kind of like how it came up here and now it's kind of flagging out a little bit here. So it's kind of getting a little bit tight. So I'd like to see another push to the upside. And maybe we have some kind of diagonal here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. You can kind of see that's what happened over here, but we actually took the high and we just kind of consolidated sideways a little bit. So not really too interesting yet. Let's go to the 1 hour here. Now one thing could be is 1, 2, 1, 2. This is wave 3. This is wave 4. Maybe we get an ABC and then we come up and hit that wave 5. I want to see us get back to 60 cents. I want to see us get back to 60 cents, and then I want to see a big ABC here, and then I want to see a continuation to the upside. Now, you can see we've gotten rejected right in here, or resisted. So if this comes down, we can create that shoulder, right? And then break out later on. So I love XRP. I think it looks really nice. Let's take a look at XLM. XLM also, wow, look at XLM. Jeez. Look at the 3-wave move on XLM. I think look at that. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, look at this. You got a massive impulse, and then you got a 3-wave pullback. Right? Similar to what happened with XRP. XRP. So, if this is 3 down, yeah, see, I don't like that because it took the low here. So, and then when you zoom out, this whole thing is actually a 3-wave move. Look at this. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, look at that monster 3-wave move. And this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a ascending, broadening wedge. 5-wave move with a massive 3-wave pullback. And then we have an impulse and another 3-wave pullback. This thing can literally start going crazy right now. Right? Or at least soon. So, man, XLM looks definitely interesting, I would imagine. And I think same thing with Litecoin too. It kind of looks similar. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. We got a nice. First of all, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got a diag. And then we have an A, a B, and a C. So you could see that 3-wave move here. Boom, boom, boom. Right? So we're going up, and then we came down in 3. Anytime you go up and then you correct in 3, chances are you're going to get at least a retracement back up to here. So I want to see a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, right? And then that would kick off another move to the upside, because I think what this is just a bigger W, right? You can see the W right there. But I think this whole thing is part of a bigger W. And you can see how we came up, we came down, we came up, we came down. So this little heel here is the same as this right here. Right? So following that, we got something like that. Following that, we would get something like that. So I think Litecoin's looking good. And I think eventually they're going to have do they have a Grayscale Litecoin trust? I don't know. I know it's on Robinhood. I mean, I know it's on a lot of exchanges. I mean, Litecoin's an OG. I think over time with inflation, Litecoin's just going to do well. It's been a terrible one to hold in relation to Bitcoin. You were better off just holding Bitcoin. But I think if you time it just right, it would be a good setup. But if you're holding Litecoin, I mean, you might as well just keep holding it or swap it for XRP. That's what I mean. Honestly, if I was holding Litecoin, I would probably do that. Not financial advice. So let's look at XRP versus Ethereum here. Look at that. It's slowly starting to creep up here a little bit. I think I remember saying that this could be a B wave. Yeah, you could see the ascending triangle here. So we have an A, this could be a B, and now we need to get C and then continue. I'll give you an example as well. Look at this Q and T move here. We had this big impulse, and then we had a 3-wave pullback, and look at that massive wave. I mean, that came up nicely, and this whole thing became another 3-wave move, but back to the upside. So now we're coming down with a 3-wave move back up. So you would expect we want to see another 3 down and then continue higher. Toncoin, honestly, it looks kind of bearish right now. I mean, it just seems like it's making a top, right? And if I flip it upside down, you can see it's kind of making a bottom. So definitely needs some work. Now it could be a 3-wave move like this. You can see that 3-wave shape, A, B, C. That's a flat. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's actually bullish. So if this can get 5 waves and then we can flag out in here, we can probably continue moving up. So one thing I forgot to mention yesterday with Bitcoin is this bottlenecking here. This is the chart upside down. So we had this top here, we dropped in, and you can see we dropped in and we started bottlenecking, and then bam, we made it to the upside, right? So if I flip it back, you can see we were flagging out here. So Bitcoin's doing exactly what it needs to do, which is continue getting higher. Again, we got that 5-wave move, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, the risk though is that this could be like a triple correction. So if this is 3 up, and this is 3 down, and this is 3 back up, then that whole thing becomes 3, which means we still need 4 and 5. You see what I mean? So that's always the risk, right? So what could negate that is if we get, you can see this is 1, 2. Let's say we get 3, 4, and 5. That's what we really want to see. So just like how this was 1, 2, and then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. We want to see 5 waves and 5. But it looks 3-wave-ish, which gives me the impression of maybe it could be a complex correction. And if that's the case, then we still have to come down. And all this was a retracement. So we came down, and now we're making our retracement. If we get rejected here and we start coming back down again, then we have one more chance at this being a W, this being an X, and then we continue higher in Y. And if that fails, then we have a tiny other chance at this being 3 down, 3 up, and then 3 back down, and then go, which would mean we'd probably break the low. But imagine that if we come up here, get everybody bullish, we slam down hard, we take out all this liquidity, we get everybody extremely bearish, and then explode it to the upside. I can see the market makers doing that. So, but if we do that, we come down and we came back up and we get rejected here, and then we kept going down, then I would say we're probably going down into some sort of reaccumulation schematic somewhere in this zone, right? So we would come down, play around a little bit, then continue higher. So basically sort of like cupping in here. And if you look at this, it could be kind of like a cup or a shoulder, a head, and we come in for another shoulder, and then we go higher. So you can see the cup, or the inverse head and shoulders. Or you could say this is a cup, and now we're making this handle here. We're flagging out for the handle. But either way, it looks pretty good. So the only thing I don't like I said yesterday, is ADA. See how it dropped in, and now we're sort of bottlenecking. So this kind of behavior tells me we might need another drop, right? So if ADA would drop, probably get a bigger pullback, and other altcoins too. But when you look at something like Engine, right, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it seems like it's finished. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit difficult to gauge at the moment. So we'll keep looking at it as the days go on. So anyways, real quick, if you can hit that like button, I really appreciate it. We went over the hour mark. Let's look at the weekly candle. So the weekly candle is going to end in a couple days, and the weekly candle looks just fine with Theta. It looks just fine with Ethereum. Let's see. Let me get to XLM. Looks really good. XRP looks really good. That was a nice weekly candle for XRP. Let's look at XRP dominance. I haven't looked at that. It's basically the same as XRP versus Bitcoin. Anyways, that'll do it for this video. I don't want to keep dragging it on, but appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we're gonna take a look, probably a members video, yeah, so sometime this weekend. But look at this three-wave shape in Uniswap. Look at that. Look at that. We got a 1, 2. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a diagonal, and then you got a nice three-wave move here. I mean, that looks nice. And look at what it's been doing here. It's been creating a base. Look at that base. That's a platform, right? So getting this three-way move is important. Now, what we want to see here for Uniswap is we want to get a 5-way move, we want to flag out, and we want to continue higher. Shoulder, head, shoulder. I think that's where we're going. I think that's the target, is back into these retracement levels. So we'll see if that plays out. Remember, it is an election year, so anything can happen. But that'll do it. I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.